Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the Justice Department reveals 5 more suspects have been tagged as respondents in the killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo and 9 others. The Degamo camp remains confident of its own witnesses against suspended Congressman Arnie Teves, even if majority of the suspects will recant their testimonies. Justice Assistant Secretary and spokesperson Mico Clavano joins us in the program. Five people allegedly involved in the assassination of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo and 9 others were included in the multiple murder charges filed by the National Bureau of Investigation against suspended Congressman Arnie Teves, according to Justice Secretary Boying Remulla. They are facing multiple counts of murder, frustrated murder, and attempted murder in relation to the massacre in Pamplona town last March. Remulla adds the investigation is still ongoing on the possible involvement of Teves' brother, former Negros Oriental Governor Pride Henry Teves. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Justice spokesperson Mico Clavano. Attorney Mico, welcome back to the source. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Mayong buntag, Pinky. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, so murder complaint filed Wednesday against Congressman Arnie Teves before the Department of Justice. Let's just talk about the process first. According to Attorney Bilibid, there will be an evaluation first and foremost, and then possibly a formal investigation.
Yes, Pinky. But before anything else, allow me to put everything into context. No? What we have on our hands is a cold-blooded massacre of 10 people, including the highest elected official of a province. The massacre was done in broad daylight within the home of the governor while he was giving a financial assistance to his constituents. So to solve this case is a clear message, no, to all the hardened criminals that this type of behavior is really not tolerated in our country. It's serious, and it cannot be derailed by any circumstance. And to answer your question, yes, the case was filed the other day, no, and it goes through what is called a case evaluation, where the prosecutor basically evaluates the complaint and the supporting document to determine if there is enough evidence to warrant further proceedings. After that, it is referred now for preliminary investigation, which is what a lot of us are familiar with. There, the prosecutor will try to find sufficient evidence. A preliminary hearing may even be conducted. And during this hearing, the complainant, the accused, and the witnesses present their testimonies and evidence before the prosecutor.
When do you think this preliminary investigation will begin? I'm just going to jump to that because it's been said time and time again by Secretary Boying Remulla that the mastermind, one of the masterminds, is Congressman Arnie Teves. So after evaluation, it's going to be preliminary investigation. When do you think this will happen, the formal investigation?
Well, I can't give a concrete timeline. However, I can anticipate siguro within next week, we can see this case being referred for preliminary investigation.
I see. Attorney, what is contained in the complaint?
Well, a lot has already been said on the media, actually, and the backbone really of the complaint is that, no, it lays out the facts, the planning stage, and the actual assassination of our governor from Negros Oriental. It has a lot of supporting documents, including affidavits and statements by the gunmen and lookouts and other people who played a role in the assassination. And it basically lines out the path of communication from the alleged mastermind all the way down to the gunmen.
So, as you mentioned, it has been, or it is rather, what has been said in the past, that there are about 10 to 11 suspects originally pointing to Congressman Arnie Teves. There were a number of, I guess you would call it circumstantial evidence, wherein supposedly Video call si Congressman Arnie Teves while some of the gunmen were there. This supposed helicopter that Marvin Miranda supposedly used and others, no? So there's nothing new to what the NBI submitted to the panel of or to the prosecutor, other than what has been said in the past.
Well, that's the backbone. And when we talk about circumstantial evidence, you have to establish a lot of them. It cannot just be one or two or three to replace direct evidence. Because of course, when you speak of crimes like this, there is that tendency and natural attempt to conceal and to hide the crime. So if there's no direct evidence, you have to substantiate your circumstantial evidence, and you have to have substantial circumstances pointing to one direction, and that's what's laid out in the complaint.
And what will happen now? Because even Secretary Remulla had earlier said that there are about 6 or 7 of the original suspects in their, no, let me repeat that. 6 or 7 suspects in their original affidavit are now being uncooperative. What happens now?
Yeah. Well, when you talk about the recantation, just to set the record straight, no, because a lot has been said about recantation. I've heard it from several news outlets that witnesses and gunmen have recanted. But just to set the record straight, there have been no recantations to date. What actually happened was that several of the suspects have lawyered up.
Yeah.
Perhaps the confusion came in when Secretary Remulla mentioned that there's a possibility of recantation given the fact that they've lawyered up.
Yeah.
Which, in all honesty, is good, because if these suspects and gunmen have lawyered up, it affords them more focus, more protection for their own rights, no? But because of the lawyer-client privilege of communication, anything is now possible. That's what we're saying. But just to set the record straight, there are no recantations to date.
Yeah.
However, of course, the department wishes, however, not to remind the lawyers that we hope that they be used as a vehicle to find justice and not to obstruct it.
I don't understand, Attorney, when you said that 6 or 7 of them lawyered up and this could be good. How can that be good for the case or for the complaint?
Well, I'm saying it's good, just to quell any doubts as to the integrity of the investigation, just to put to rest that there's any sort of hindrance on the part of the gunmen to speak freely. Now that they have lawyered up, we can assure that their rights are protected. And the department is very confident that we have a solid case. We're very confident that we can get this case closed.
Yeah. I want to show that photo again, if we can, on the screen. There are 11 suspects, Attorney, ano po?
Right.
Secretary Boying is saying 6 or 7. The word he used have become uncooperative, yung po sabi niya. If we leave it at 7, you have 4 left. Tell us more about these 4 suspects. Are they lawyering up, or are they still pointing to circumstantial evidence pointing to Congressman Arnie Teves as the mastermind?
Well, we anticipate that they will lawyer up. As of right now, we do have the affidavits from the time that they were arrested, and these statements are usually made, well, after a startling occurrence like the assassination or the massacre. They were caught very, very soon after. And, the natural tendency of people to speak the truth after something like that has happened is very high. And obviously, they did not anticipate that they would be caught, they would be arrested due to the hot pursuit operation. So, there's that natural tendency to speak the truth. And as everything has been said in media, they all pointed in the same direction without them having the time to collude, to get their stories straight together. They were all interviewed separately in separate detention centers, and they all happened to point in the same direction.
Oh, but let me clarify, sir, no? there are 6 or 7 who are uncooperative. What I was saying is that there could be 4 from the original 11. What is the stand of the 4 now? Are you looking at the possibility of the 4 also lawyering up?
Yes, there's that possibility, definitely. In the natural course of the case, these suspects and gunmen will have the time now to look for their own lawyers, right? And well, as of right now, they have not changed their story. No recantations have been made up to date. So the story sticks. It's just we had to tell the public that they have lawyered up. Just also to be transparent and to make sure that nobody doubts our process, because ever since day one, we have done nothing but try to get to the
Okay.
bottom of this. And so them lawyering up, as I said, is a good thing so that they may be protected also. But as of right now, the story stands. They're sticking to their affidavits. They're sticking to the same statements they made right after their arrest. And that was the basis of the complaint filed the other day.
So these 4 or 5 are still sticking with their original story, but you are not, you are open to the possibility of them lawyering up, or that would possibly mean in the future recant their original statements and affidavits.
Yes, Pinky. However, the Supreme Court has time and time again already mentioned in their decisions that recantations are not looked at with favor.
Right.
There are circumstances that lead us to believe that these recantations may be a result of external forces. There
Yeah.
are other people working to make sure
Right.
that this case does not appear credible, does not appear like it was done with integrity. And our job is really just to get to the bottom of this, because it will send, like I said at the start of the interview, it will send a very good message that this type of behavior, of a massacre of this magnitude, is no longer tolerable in our country.
That was the same
and has never
ruling.
been, actually.
That was the same ruling in the Dilima case recently, wherein the judge had said that recantations are not usually usually unfavorable. Ano po. But knowing that Ragos
Yes.
was the only witness against former Senator Laila De Lima, this was taken into account by the judge and proved reasonable doubt in that case. We need to take a very short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Justice spokesperson Mico Clavano. Attorney, Secretary Boying Rimulya said that apart from Congressman Arnie Teves, 5 more suspects were charged with this complaint. Ano? Who are these 5? Are these 5, just to clarify the issue, are they part of the 11 that were already arrested?
No, Pinky. These are an additional 5. So aside from Congressman Arnie Teves, there are 5 other respondents in the case, and the NBI has identified them to have an involvement or are found to have participated in the assassination or the massacre.
How so?
And some of them are lookouts. Some of them are those that bought certain materials or essential tools for the assassination. Some of them bought the vehicles, and that's now we have a clearer picture of the whole planning stage. That's why we decided to include the 5 respondents along with Congressman Arnie Teves in the complaint as well.
So would it be right to say, excuse me, attorney, that there were 11 originally, plus 1 Congressman Arnie, plus 5?
Yes.
So there's
that's correct,
17.
Pinky.
That's a total of 17.
Sorry, Pinky. Yes, a total of 17.
All right. So you mentioned their nature of their involvement. Just a question on that. Why did it take a while for them to be discovered or found?
Well, as we laid out before, there is really a process to be followed, no? And when we talk of indirect evidence, this type of evidence is not easily stumbled upon. And to be able to paint the picture very well, the law enforcement agencies who were on the ground needed to really gather enough and a lot of evidence to make our case very solid. And you can imagine the type of resistance they faced when they were there on the ground. And it's
Okay.
really a result of the complexity and the political color that is attributed to this type of case. And well, the last stretch was really a result of the suspects lawyering up. And we just wanted to make sure that everything that we had was solid and was not subject anymore to any confusion. The I understand that the secretary has mentioned already way back, and at that point, what we had were statements. What we had were several object evidence leading all to the same direction, but
Yeah.
we were not satisfied with that yet. We wanted the level of evidence to be, like the secretary mentioned, reasonable certainty of conviction.
Right, right.
And
You
that's
mentioned
why
that.
it took
But
just a bit more. But if you look at the, yeah, go ahead, Pinky.
where
Sorry.
are the 5 right now? The 5 respondents. Nahuli na ho ba sila?
Not yet, Pinky. Not yet.
Okay.
So as soon as these cases are filed and it goes through preliminary investigation and an information is finally filed in court, then a warrant of arrest will be issued by the court.
Attorney, just one more point now before I move on to another issue. These suspects, 11 or respondents, I remember the press conference of Secretary Abalos, Secretary Remulla. These 11 supposed to be identified themselves in that particular massacre, where they were, who was who. That's why nagkaroon po ng pangalan at araw doon sa taong yon. What would be the logical explanation why after that they would choose to become uncooperative?
It really does beat me, actually, Pinky, how they could recant such a statement, identifying themselves in a video where they literally pointed at themselves in the CCTV video and said, "That's me. I killed this many people. I pointed my gun here and there." And to later on recant is, which is why, we're not too worried about it because it's too telling already. Everything that's been said and done by these gunmen and suspects, it's quite hard to recant unless, by some magical hand, they say that suddenly it's not them. So it beats me. Your question is
But attorney, they
right
can
on
always,
point, actually.
hindi ho ba, they can always say that they were coerced when they were arrested. Pinilit po sila na sabihin sino to, ano ang partisipasyon ko. They can do that.
Yes, but there's really no evidence, or there's really nothing to point at that type of treatment.
Okay.
Right when they were caught, we presented them to media, and even the media had access to them. There were several interviews made at the detention center of NBI where they themselves spoke freely, and right then and there, you can already see that these people have really there was absolutely no coercion, no intimidation of any type, especially because we have also CCTV videos installed in the rooms where they were interviewed,
Okay.
and you can see by the body language that
Yeah.
they were very willing to tell
Really?
their story.
And is that something that's admissible in court?
No, that's for internal purposes, obviously.
okay.
No, I mean it's part of our way to make sure
To
that
determine.
things are done with integrity.
Oo.
Yes, yes.
Let me do a follow-up on this. Attorney Bilibid was saying that there is supposed to be this ex-DOJ undersecretary applying pressure to some of the suspects. Meron daw, umano, kakuntsaba sa loob ng ilang mga jail guards, yung mga nagbabantay po pala sa NBI, sa mga respondents or witnesses, at nag-o-offer daw po ng pera. Is this true, sir? And what do you plan to do about this in case it is?
Well, no report has yet reached our office about that. We are, I mean, we understand that when you leave suspects or witnesses in a detention center for too long, there breeds a lot of familiarity with the facility, with the people there. That is why when it was mentioned that there's a request to transfer them from NBI to Camp Crame, the secretary was very open to the idea because to move them is a good idea because there's no longer any familiarity that can come out of it. Um, you know, that's really a risk that we have to face, especially in cases like this, and
Yeah.
in a lot of our other cases where you have people detained for a long period of time in one area. So, these risks are possible. These risks are always going to be present. And we just have to find a way to make sure that the integrity of the case is preserved by moving them as needed or as desired by
And and when
by the suspects or by the victims.
and when can they be moved?
Well, it's on process already, Pinky, actually. We've already given a heads up to the NBI director that these suspects, these gunmen, may be moved, no, upon the request of certain parties. So we can
Okay.
expect, no, in the next few days that if the secretary signs the request or the approval to the request, that they may be moved to Camp Crame.
Very quickly, sir. But you've heard of this supposed DOJ, former DOJ undersecretary, allegedly pressuring the suspects.
Yes, yes, Pinky. I've heard of that, and that came to me way back when he was actually there in the NBI, and initially when we had asked the suspects or the witnesses whether they knew him, they initially said no, and that is why the NBI had no choice but to turn him away, and then eventually he found his way again back to the NBI, and perhaps he was able to talk already to the families outside, saying that someone had sent him, and that's why the NBI also had no choice but to let him speak to the suspects because he had already gotten the consent of the family. So it's very telling also that the suspects did not know him upon
Or,
his first arrival at NBI.
Initially. Who is this USEC, sir?
Well, I would not like to divulge his name without further clearance, no, from the higher ups.
Okay.
It's way above my pay grade. I think
All right.
that information should be kept quite confidential first.
Another short break. We'll be right back. Watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Justice spokesperson Mico Clavano. Attorney, any update on this terrorist tag on Congressman Arnie Teves?
Well, the ATC Technical Working Group is set to meet again for the second time to discuss the matter. And in that meeting, we expect the law enforcement agencies to present the evidence gathered. Because initially, Pinky, the NBI and the other law enforcement agencies only had evidence in relation to the murder. They had other sources that told them about other incidents which were not even filed in court or with the prosecutor. But of course, the NBI had to focus on the Degamo case first. But now they've started to dig into those other incidents. We also got a lot of material from the Senate hearing where a lot of these incidents were put to light as well. So we can expect, no, that in this next TWG meeting, we will be able to see the progress of the evidence gathering and the case build-up by the law enforcement agencies.
But it seems obviously that Secretary Boying Remulla optimistic that he will be tagged, that Congressman Arnie Teves will be tagged as a terrorist. I guess long and short, sir, when do you think this will happen?
Well, I can I can give a timeline of about a month
Still a month.
or so.
Okay.
Because the designation, the TWG has been very diligent in meeting and trying to figure out whether the designation can be done as soon as possible, or we need to find more evidence.
Okay.
But it's quite substantial already.
Just shifting issues, still pretty similar. Still, any progress in locating former Bucor Chief Bantag and Zulweto, sir?
Well, as the secretary always says, we have eyes and ears on the two. We just want to make sure that whenever whenever a person like Mr. Bantag, who is armed and dangerous, is out there, we want to be careful and we want to protect our law enforcement agencies as well. If he's sending feelers, then we hope those feelers will concretize, no? And he actually surrenders. We just don't want to put our law enforcement agencies, our police, our NBI agents at risk when trying to arrest someone like Mr. Bantag.
Do you mean, attorney, that you would rather, the Justice Department would rather him surrender than authorities go after him because of possible threats to the lives of those who will arrest him?
Well, the talks between the cabinet secretary who had information about the surrender of Director General Bantag and that information being shared with the secretary is still coming into fruition. No? The secretary is asking for more details as to when, where,
Okay.
and how he will surrender. So we'll just have to wait for that. No? But,
Okay.
we have eyes and ears on Mr. Bantag. So at any time that the secretary feels that these talks on surrender are a way, no, to distract us or to
Papahuli
cover
na niya.
up what he's really trying to do,
Ipapahuli.
then we will have to
Okay.
come in with force already.
Okay, so that means authorities know exactly where he is. Justice spokesperson Mico Clavano, sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Pinky. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.